Hello, my name is Clayton Oakley-Robbins. I'm going to be filming a lesson based on the 7.ms-ESS2-2 standard about Earth's surface and constructing an explanation based on evidence for how Earth's surface has changed over scales that range from local to global in size for my logistics course for Cambridge College. And this lesson is basically just going to be looking at plate tectonics and how Earth has been changing and moving, and being able to demonstrate for the students how these plate boundaries form different geologic formations. And so to begin with the lesson, this is mainly for grades 5 through 8. I teach mostly 7th, so that's the course that I'm going to be focusing on. This should take about one class period, maybe a little bit longer, a little leftover stuff to finish up for the next class. But in general, it should take about 54 minutes or so, one class session. And what we're looking at is going to be looking at the theory of plate tectonics and how the 3 different types of plate boundaries, how they interact, what are they, as well as how do these tectonic plates move. And so for this lesson, how we're going to go about doing it for the students, they're going to be working on like a do now to begin with, where they're going to be looking at a photo here of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, and they're going to just be prompted with some questions about how did these islands formed, specifically about volcanic island arcs, the presence of deep ocean trenches, and just how these things are related to plate tectonics in general. After going through that do now, we'll probably take some notes on some slides that I've prepared that are part of the lesson plan, just talking about the different types of plate boundaries, where they might occur, those sort of things. And then as we move through the slides, taking notes, we'll conclude with that, and then eventually the students will be ready to get started on the next part, which is going to be the demonstration of their knowledge of these different plate boundaries, where I will then demonstrate, which I'm about to do in a moment, a little bit of reminders of lab safety, reminders not to eat the materials that we're working with today. We are working with snacks. This portion of the lesson is called Snack Tectonics, and it's a nice way to bring the kids in because it's all stuff they like to use at home. But basically, what we're going to do is get some materials together. I will demonstrate kind of how the lab is going to go, and then we'll get into the later portions of this. But with the Snack Tectonics, some of the materials that you're going to need are frosting, plastic knives or spoons, some graham crackers, fruit roll-ups, a cup of water, a ruler, and some scissors, and also some parchment paper. All right, and depending on school districts, if they choose to not let you use food for whatever reason, you can replace things like the frosting with shaving cream and the graham crackers with paper towel, cardboard, or other materials that you can find accessible to you. And there's different thicknesses of cardboard as well, so that might be able to help out, or even plastic to replace the fruit roll-ups, just in case there's food issues. But what we're going to do here with the Snack Tectonics is kind of get your station set up. So the first part of this is getting your parchment paper with about 1 centimeter of the frosting or shaving cream onto your surface here. And then the very beginning part of this, we're going to be looking at what our materials are. I've already cut up some of the graham crackers and the fruit roll-ups into the shapes and sizes that we need. But depending on what type of graham crackers you have, you're going to want about 3-inch pieces, about 6 centimeters or so, 5.5 centimeters. And then your fruit roll-ups, they're going to want to kind of match that size as well. Okay. And the reason why we're using the graham crackers, these are going to represent our continental crusts. They're a little bit thicker, just like the thickness of the Earth, and they're a little bit lighter, less dense than our fruit roll-ups that we're going to use for our oceanic crusts. And then our frosting here, this is supposed to represent the asthenosphere that these crusts are riding along the top of. And so the first one that we're going to make is the divergent plate boundary. So we're going to grab 2 of our oceanic plates. I'm going to lay them on top of the frosting and keep them right butted up next to each other. And then they're going to push down on them because they're dense, so they're going to sink a little bit into this layer of the earth. And as you push down, you're going to kind of spread them apart just slightly. And as you push down on these plates, you're going to have some of the frosting poke through. And that's going to represent the magma that forms at divergent plate boundaries as those oceanic plates separate, creating things like mid-ocean ridges. And then the next part that we're going to be working on is demonstrating the convergent plate boundaries with two oceanic plates, with an oceanic plate and a continental plate. And so what you're going to need to do is remove one of your fruit roll-ups and then replace it with one of our graham crackers. And you don't want to push down on the graham cracker because it's less dense. It's going to kind of float above, not sink so much as the fruit roll-up does. And so when you have a convergent plate boundary, they're going to collide together. And so how you're going to demonstrate that for the students, you're going to have the continental plate, and as you push it towards the fruit roll-up should roll underneath of your continental plate, just as they would do on Earth's surface, having to do with the two densities. All right. And then the third one that we will demonstrate is the continent to continent collisions at a convergent plate boundary. So you're going to have to remove your other fruit roll-up, because now we're working with just continental plates. So you're going to have your other graham cracker ready to go. But this is where the water is going to come into play. So you're going to take both of your graham crackers and you're just going to dip one edge of each into the water for just a few seconds, just to soften them up a little bit. Then you're going to place them back onto your asthenosphere, where we will get ready for them to collide. And so once you have them on there, you're going to butt them up against each other again, just like with the other couple models. And then for this one, you're going to just push them together and then watch them as they bunch up. And so continent to continent collisions create things like mountains. And these graham crackers demonstrate that pretty well because they get really smushed up, especially when they're wet. And you can kind of see that from there. So that's 3 out of the 4. And then the last one that we're going to look at is our transform plate boundaries that happen along fault lines, such as San Andreas Fault. And so what you need to do for this one is we need to remove our graham crackers. And sometimes, depending on how long they stay wet, you may have some of the softer residue left in the middle from the softening of the graham crackers. But you can just remove that easily. And you're going to want to flip onto the other sides that are not wet, place them back on top of our asthenosphere. And then for the transform plate boundaries, instead of pushing them together or sliding them apart, you're going to push and slide them across each other. So then you end up with this type of structure. And if you're able to do it and look closely, you'll even see bits of the crust all ground up in between. And so that's kind of the demonstrations aspect of this. And then students will then work either together or independently on answering some analysis questions about, why did we utilize graham crackers and fruit roll-ups for these different layers of the Earth's crust. Did they represent these things well? Do we think that what would happen with the frosting if it hardened? Would it be a good representation of our Earth's asthenosphere? Why or why not? Those sort of questions. And then as a kind of wrap up to this, to really gauge their understanding, part of my lesson plan is to include an exit ticket that discusses utilizing a comic strip, using that analogy, and have the students kind of draw different plate boundary interactions like convergent, divergent, and transform, but use analogies that they're more used to in real life. Like a convergent plate boundary could be something like a fist bump, or a car crash, or high-fiving. Well, a divergent plate boundary could be something like opening up a bag of chips, along those lines. And then in addition to that as well, to kind of really wrap this up and give students that kind of get through the work a little bit faster, there's extra credit opportunities to have them research and utilize a map of the world's plate boundaries and pick 2 adjacent plate boundaries and research what types of activities go on in those locations, and to try and see what geologic formations may or may not be there and kind of how they were formed at that time. So that is the major aspects of this lesson plan about plate tectonics, particularly the snack tectonics aspects. And I would recommend during this part of the demonstration that you have students either use a cell phone or camera or their Chromebooks to take pictures of the geologic formations that they're making with their snacks in order to best preserve some of these memories, and then able to upload it to their digital activity sheet as they go along.